This is the story of Oregon wheat. Typically, high-quality, soft white wheat grown in the vast expanses of eastern Oregon, the Klamath Basin, and in the lush Willamette River Valley. Wheat from these diverse regions has a common trait. It helps feed a hungry world. That means it must travel from farm to river to terminals at the Port of Portland and onto the world. The quest to grow more Oregon wheat that stands up to pests, disease, and drought, starts here in the hands of researchers at Oregon State University.
The only way to have our growers be able to be profitable and have food stay at its relatively inexpensive price is to have new varieties coming out each year that meet the needs of the growers and meet the needs of the consumers. Each year we make about 1,200 crosses. We would target hopefully having 2 varieties released about every 2 to 3 years.
The main things that we're looking for is adaptability. Wheat is very locally adapted. In Oregon, we have a vast difference between Western Oregon and Eastern Oregon. Western Oregon has a lot more rainfall, so we're not just looking for varieties that have high yield potential, but we're also looking for varieties that have good foliar disease resistance. If we can get those good genetic resistance, then that means the growers don't have to apply fungicides. On the east side of the mountains, we're looking at varieties that are better adapted to lower rainfall. So they have to handle drought stress much better.
Making the most of Oregon's farmland, growing wheat, using the latest varieties, being good stewards of that land, supporting their communities. It's a way of life in Oregon wheat country.
It's important to understand that wheat is grown on about 1/3 of the state's cropland. And we've got over 2,000 farms. So this is a lot of producers across our state.
My name's Eric Oram, and along with my wife, Brandy, and our 4 kids, we farm about 5,000 acres of dryland wheat.
Wheat is a key ingredient in daily life on the farm and for consumers around the world. Farmers, farm practices, and technology have all evolved to meet these needs.
We've come so far in the last 20 years with the no-till, reduction of chemical use, and more efficient farming techniques. I'm actually, with no-till farming, I'm actually rebuilding topsoil instead of depleting topsoil. We have to farm our ground in a way that's sustainable for the next generation.
Many working Oregon wheat farms have existed for generations, some for over 150 years.
Our family, we are 4th-generation farmers up there. We have been farming for 103 years on the same piece of ground. We use some technology like soil moisture monitors out in the field. Our irrigation packages that we have on our circles are the top notch that you'll find. The rest of the world comes here to learn about irrigation.
We're responsible for maintaining the ground and adapting to new technology and new techniques that are provided through extension services, research that's out there as far as, GPSing, auto steer, stuff like that. But what our responsibility is as farmers is be stewards of the land at the end of the day.
Bottom line, we're more productive. We're getting more acres per day, putting less chemicals on the ground. We are using less fuel. And at the end of the day, we're making a little more money.
The flow of wheat relies on several important links in the supply chain as it moves from farm to storage to a railroad or the mighty Columbia River to Portland and far, far beyond. But the first step is moving wheat from the farm by truck.
From the field, we load into the semis. We put the wheat onto the semis. Semis take the wheat down to the elevator, which is down on the Columbia River. And then once it's at the elevator on the river, it gets shipped down via barge through the Port of Portland and then out to the rest of the world.
In the wheat supply chain coming out of Oregon, what barging allows is the farmers and the shippers to be able to, stockpile large quantities of wheat, stage it. They can then sell it in units of thousands of tons at a time and deliver it to large ocean-going vessels for delivery overseas. Barging is the most fuel-efficient mode of transportation. One barge is equal to 100 to 120 truckloads of wheat.
The final link in the wheat supply chain is found at the Port of Portland, where barges and trains are unloaded and ocean-going vessels are loaded, all to feed a hungry world.
The volume of grain moved out of the Portland Harbor is between 7 and 7.5 million tons a year. The vast majority of that is wheat, and Oregon makes up a large portion of that.
I think it's very hard to overstate the value of wheat as an export here in Oregon. Not only are the ships bigger, the export volumes per vessel greater, but each of the terminals from Portland to Vancouver to Willamette to Longview, they're all growing in very significant ways.
Such expansion means one more thing will grow: jobs.
Production of wheat supported $817 million of economic activity in the state's economy, and this produced about 5,600 jobs across the state. The production of wheat touches a lot of different industries across the Oregon economy.
From our economic impact studies, for every 1 million tons of grain moved through the Portland Harbor, that generates about 110 jobs in direct employment. Jobs tend to be very well-paying.
Wheat has long been an Oregon success story. Sound research and continued smart stewardship of the land will extend that success for years into the future.
At the end of the day, these farmers are residents in small communities across the state. So they take the income from commodity production and they put that into their communities.
The key to economic sustainability is not just generating higher outputs through increased yield, but we also want to look at reducing our inputs so that less money goes into the crop and we're still achieving either the same or higher outputs.
We are striving to be as sustainable as we can with the technology that's available to us.
One of the great Oregon historians refer to the Columbia River as a river of grain, and I think it's a great way to think about the Columbia in terms of navigation. American food exports are more popular than ever in Asia, and I think that that will continue to be the case for some time, and something about which our producers can really take advantage.
Wheat truly is an Oregon success story, and with productive new wheat varieties, a state full of well-prepared growers, good infrastructure, and a well-oiled supply chain, Oregon wheat will continue to be an ever-growing global export.